Well, it's finally cold here in Vegas. We got ice on the ground and we're in the 20s. This is Friday and it should be the last test drive of the week. This is the fourth test drive of the week and it is an early JK with an L9H engine. We've been doing a lot of L9H engines lately and there's no reason not to. It's a great engine. It's essentially the same engine as an L94 without air fuel management. It's also essentially the same engine as an L92 with flex fuel capability. The L92 was the early 6.2 truck motor and it was variable valve timing all aluminum. They did not run flex fuel, so it had a different intake and injectors on it, and it's not compatible with the L9H, which came out in 09. Also, the L92 ran a different map sensor, speed density system, so the calibrations are quite different also. Don't try to mix an L92 and the later model 6.2 truck motors, or you may have some issues. Now you can update an L92, and we've done it, changing the intake out, and we've also got options to keep the intake you have and change over the map sensor to run a later model operating system. However, the best thing is to try to just get a later model 09 or up L9H or 10 or up L94. Here's a little bit of geek information. These modern LS engines have ultra low emissions in cold startup. They do it through several technologies. Back in the old days with like small block Chevys and carburetors, we would richen the carburetor out on a cold start. We had to richen the combustion chamber out to keep combustion going under the cold conditions. So we were putting out more COs and hydrocarbons right after a cold start. We moved on to O2 sensors, and in the 80s and early 90s, O2 sensors were basically single wire sensors. They started to have heated sensors eventually, but these sensors were heated so they would come online faster. These modern LS engines have ultra fast sensors, which means even on a cold day like today where it's 29 degrees out, these sensors can start switching within 10 seconds. And there's other strategies too, like the transmission holds a higher gear or a lower gear so the RPM stay higher to warm the combustion chambers up. So we've dropped the emission levels on cold startup dramatically with these modern engines. Another successful test drive coming off the mountain. We just got above freezing. It's pretty cold up there, but I had fun. This JK ran perfect, not a single burp. These test drives are really becoming routine. This Jeep has pretty good suspension. I don't know what's on it, but some of these Jeeps beat me up with the smaller tires, but this one did a good job. That's 4 test drives this week. I believe we had 1 LS3, 2 L9Hs, and 1 L96. I believe we're going to have another Gen 5, actually 2, coming up in about a week or two. Notice how easy it is to get up to freeway speed. About this build has a PSC XD box, and let me mention something about that. The original XD box will work with our billet drive, but the new XD box, the Generation 2, which is even larger, will not. We have done some builds with a new Generation 2 box, however it does require some modification, so call us at the shop and we'll tell you about it. This is running a low mileage L9H engine. It was installed with no fabrication using our easy engine mounts. We're using a factory GM SUV truck harness that plugs into our power distribution center that we manufacture in-house. It plugs into our interior connector, which goes to the accelerator pedal and data link connector, and it plugs into the chassis connector, which does one of the O2 sensors and the evap emissions components. No holes were drilled in this Jeep. No grinding or cutting was done in the entire swap. Everything was bolt-in. This Jeep is running our Mocan module. And for you guys that don't have Mocan and have the Motec module, don't be disappointed. The functionality is very similar. You have cruise control, Tapshift. Really the biggest indication that you have Mocan is this indicator here. So if I bring it back, And see, we're in 5th now. This L9H engine is using our full billet accessory drive. They're machined from aluminum in-house. The air compressor, alternator, and power steering pump brackets are all billet. We're using the factory JK air compressor on the driver's side lower as Jeep intended. That gets it out of the way of the frame on the right side as well as the upper control arm on the passenger side. One nice thing about our easy engine mounts is they are adjustable. This L9H, and especially the Gen 5 engines, have very tall intakes. And if you're working on an early model JK, space is limited. The later model JKs with the Penstars actually have a larger firewall opening because the Penstar engine is double overhead cam and it's wider. So Jeep turned the battery sideways, just like the Hemi guys used to do on the 12 and ups, and opened up the firewall. But on the earlier JKs, the truck engines have about a half an inch, maybe an inch to the firewall. That's where we like to put them. We want to get them as far back as we can and as down low as we can. So with the easy engine mounts, you can do that. You can move the engine back and forth. You can move the engine up and down and get it exactly where you want it. If you have an LS3 style engine with a low intake, you got miles of room. You can pretty much put the engine wherever you want. As far as the transfer case goes, a lot of guys ask me, what about the drive shafts? That really depends. When you raise a JK with mid-arms, it pulls the axles forward. So if you were to take a 4-door, and especially a 2-door, and raise it up 3 or 4 inches, it's going to pull those axles forward. We do move the transfer case back about 1 inch, some cases 1.5 inches. So if you are running aftermarket suspension that has longer control arms, because traditionally if you were to get, let's say, a 3-inch lift metal cloak, rock crawler, the arms are longer because they want to put the wheels back into the middle of the wheel well. So that'll get you your length back. And if there's enough spline on your drive shaft, you might just get away with using the stock shafts. Do I recommend using the stock R Zeppas on the higher horsepower engines? No, of course not. But my wife's got over 150,000 miles on the stock shafts in our 5.3 JK, and they're still going strong. So if you're going to lift your JK and you have adjustable arms or longer arms, you're probably going to be okay. If you don't, you may have to upgrade your drive shafts. We do have a couple of transfer case options. The one I like to run is the full-size GM adapter that we helped design, and it has the flat pad on the bottom to accept the heavy-duty four-wheel drive GM truck transmission mount. I don't like running the single stud mounts, poly mounts, cantilevered L brackets. I like running that pad. It's very, very strong, and having the dual studs spreads the load out for a more stable mounting. We did notice early on with the polyurethane mount, the engine could rock, or the transmission would rock. Advanced adapters and others have made spreader bars that go across to help stabilize that with additional bushings, but it's just not necessary. If you run the proper four-wheel drive heavy-duty rubber mount, it works perfect. The other mount, the other transfer case adapter that we offer, the clocking ring, is about 1 inch, well, maybe 3/4 of an inch shorter. And the main reason we use that is for 2 doors, where we want to buy some drive shaft length. But in general, you must run a four-wheel drive transmission with that adapter. With the longer adapter, you can cut the shaft off a 2-wheel drive transmission, and there will be enough spline for your input gear to go on. This will probably be the last video I do before Christmas, so have a happy holiday. And we're going to be back next year, hopefully with some new additions to our lineup. Now that the easy kits are getting into full swing and we're stocking our shelves, we're going to try to move on to some new projects. Not only for the JK, but for the JL. We're going to continue to put effort into streamlining the Gen 5 swap. We're going to work on a diesel conversion that's legal.